Welcome to Woah Drama Stories. We indulge of speaking of day-to-day troubles of human beings. Let's not wait any longer and start with the video. Sarah, my coworker, suddenly called me up, suddenly late at night, asking me for some relationship advice. I was surprised, to say the least, because we never quite openly discussed our private life or anything beyond work. I know we haven't really discussed our love life before, but you are such a big help at work. I trust you. Plus, I don't know who else to go to, said Sarah, to which I replied, I'll try to do the best I can. Sarah goes on to say she has feelings for someone other than her boyfriend and did not know what to do or whom to choose. I was confused at this because I was the one who introduced her to her boyfriend, Jake, who was a family friend of mine 3 years ago. She said she felt bad to put me in such a situation, but said she did not mean to fall for someone else. I feel like I was wrong to think Jake was the one. He makes me very happy, but I've never felt like this with him than what I do towards the other guy. I did agree that one cannot choose whom to fall in love with, and simply ask her to do what her heart says to truly be happy. I also let her know that I could not support her with all my heart, since Jake is one of my closest friends. Sarah got all worked up about breaking up with Jake right then and there, and was surprisingly very calm about letting go of a 3-year relationship. I wished her all the best, but as soon as I was going to hang up, she said, "So when are you going to leave your husband?" I thought I heard something wrong when I asked her to repeat it, and she did. She said she was in love with my husband and wanted me to leave him so that they can be together, since I had already asked her to pursue her heart. Turns out they had already been dating each other for 8 months now. Colin had been cheating on me for a while, and she doesn't want to sneak around anymore and wanted to be official with my husband. Sarah started going on about how they met at the office at the Christmas party when I brought my husband, all this time trying to convince me to leave my husband for her. Later, Jake got in touch with me, being sad about the breakup and wanting to talk about it, when it came up that Sarah never told him that she was cheating on him with my husband. I was honestly so sorry to do this to him, but I felt like he had a right to know. The funny thing was, when I confronted my husband about this affair, he didn't find anything wrong with it. Instead, he said it was normal to have people like him to have affairs and look for other things I couldn't provide with other people. It's normal. You're overreacting. I'm happy with her. Don't you want me to be happy? I divorced my husband and started the proceedings after a few days, which was good news to Sarah. She even dared to come up to me and thank me for it. I was furious, being the manager, the way she disrespected me. 6 months later, Sarah came up to me telling me how they got married and that she is resigning at a month's notice since she is pregnant with my ex's child, and she is going to be more family focused from now on, raising children and working around the house. I'm sorry you and he did not work out. I was enraged. These people ruin lives and get to be happy together? No way. I got a furious call from Sarah a week later. You knew this was happening, didn't you? He just got transferred to Adam County. It is such a remote place and not a place to raise our child. You had to be behind this. You are so jealous. Jealous? I said. You think you get to ruin my life and walk away just like that? I asked for every detail of your relationship from him before I would sign the divorce papers, and the stupid person that he is, he did. He showed me everything. Every detail, every picture, every date that you've ever been on. I did what every person would and went ahead and told his boss he was having affairs on company time. I didn't stop there. Oh no. I went ahead and let Sarah's parents know as well, whom she was really counting on for financial help after she left her job and her husband. My now ex got demoted. Guess how that turned out? Her parents didn't want to be associated with a marriage built from sneaking around and betrayal. They cut her and her husband off. I haven't been in contact with them, but last I heard, Jake sued them for emotional damages and got financial compensation. I do remember Sarah's last text to me. You ruined my life, Chloe. How could you? I, 23 female, have a 1-year-old daughter. My daughter is deaf and can't hear anything at all. Most of the people in our life were more than happy to start learning sign language almost immediately after they found out she was deaf, except my mother-in-law. This has never been a problem for us before, as whenever she's seen my daughter, I've been there and I know sign language, so we can interact that way. However, recently, my partner and I have been planning a date. We haven't had much time, just us, for a while. At a family event, we asked his sister Neve if she would be alright babysitting for the day we had planned to go out. Neve said she'd love to, but she unfortunately has work that night. My mother-in-law then offered to babysit. I told her no, as she knows no sign language, and if my daughter needed something, she couldn't communicate. My mother-in-law said it's unfair, and I should let her have time alone with my daughter. I told her that as soon as she knows sign language, or even just the most common things my daughter uses, I'm more than happy to let her babysit. She called me selfish and said not everyone has the time to learn a whole language. I told her that she can just forget it if she won't even learn basics, and just asked a friend to babysit instead. She has since been calling my husband and I selfish and saying we only care about what we want. She also gets incredibly moody when my other child doesn't want a hug. Sensory issues. She's neglected many of her younger children to the point that her two 13-year-olds spend almost all their time at mine and hate being near her, and has also made racist comments about Asians and the things she'd do if given a chance, which makes me even more scared to have her alone with my daughter. I originally didn't think this was worth mentioning, but mother-in-law has an 18-year-old cousin who uses sign language often. She's autistic, and sometimes, especially if overwhelmed, she goes completely nonverbal. It can last for as little as half an hour, or for as long as several days. During these days, she can only use sign language. She's fine with us speaking to her, she just can't speak back in those days. She did spend a lot of time around my mother-in-law growing up, and my mother-in-law never bothered to try then, so I doubt she'll try now. I am 42, female. Ex-husband, 45, male, and I were together for 20 years. We had a beautiful daughter together, Jocelyn, 14, female. We got a divorce 5 years ago due to infidelity on his part. I was devastated. He was the love of my life, and he betrayed all of the trust and loyalty we had built up. To make matters worse, he ended up in a relationship with a woman he cheated on me with. They got engaged 1 year later and are set to be married in 2 weeks. Honestly, still am heartbroken over my divorce. It's hurtful to me that we were together for 20 years, and he could just go fall in love with someone else, as if I was nothing. However, Jocelyn was only 9 when we divorced, and he's a great father, so I would never want to come in between their bond. Jocelyn loves his fiancée as she's very sweet to her, but she doesn't know the reason why her dad and I divorced. I want to tell her when she's a bit older, and he doesn't want to tell her at all. Anyways, I compromised with him that Jocelyn could come to the wedding, but that he would have to provide the transportation to and from the wedding as I want no part of it. I don't want to drop my daughter off at his wedding. I don't want to see all the decorations and all the happy guests, and it would just be too much for me. I didn't tell him all of that, obviously, but he agreed. Today he calls me and asks if he can ask for a huge favor. It turns out that his future in-laws are flying in the morning of the wedding. He has to go pick them up. Therefore, he can't pick up my daughter the day of, and wanted to ask if I could take her. I said absolutely not and asked why he can't pick her up the day before when she gets off of school. He said he doesn't want to make the drive twice, and that he will likely not have time as he has to prepare for the rehearsal dinner. I asked why can't the bride pick up her parents. He said she'll be getting her hair done and won't be able to. I laughed and told him there was no way I'd take my daughter to his wedding and that he'd have to figure it out. Boy, why did I say that? My daughter heard me and ran downstairs crying, face beet red 10 minutes after my conversation with her dad, calling me terrible and accusing me of not wanting her to spend time with her dad. I told her that's not the case, and she demanded to know why I couldn't take her. I couldn't give her an answer, and she ran upstairs crying. Now I'm getting messages from his family calling me heartless and cold and a bitch for trying to ruin his special day over a relationship that is long over. My family understands my point of view, but I feel terrible that I've upset my daughter. I don't know what to do. I hate that my daughter is upset, but I can't seem to put my feelings aside and drive her to his wedding. I don't want to be this big villain in my daughter's life by keeping her from her father, so I'm sort of thinking of telling her the truth. I know her dad would be upset, but I can't keep losing my peace of mind over him and his doing. I've already suffered enough, and I don't want my daughter to think that I'm doing this out of spite because I am bitter towards her father and his new wife. I, 23 male, just had my first child with my fiancé. It's a healthy 2-week-old boy. We're over the moon, and my brother, 38 male, referred to himself as my child's grandpa. I have a twin sister. Our parents split when we were 2 months old because dad had an affair. My mom, 58, is a doctor, so she barely had time for us. And our dad, 57, acted more like a distant relative to us and was randomly in the picture. My sister and I love our brother because despite his young age, he was the real parental figure we had. He played with us, he took us to school, he made lunch for us, He would say I love you to us. He was at every school activity. He took us to the park. He would stand next to our bed when we were sick. He'd calm us down when we were scared. I mean, he didn't provide financially. My dad and mom were responsible on that department. He provided with love and care. Even today, he calls me constantly to know how I'm doing, like he always takes this protective and fatherly role on us. I've told him to relax and rest since we are no longer kids, but he still acts like a dad. I called him Papa up until I was 9 because he was the only person who was doing for us what a parent should, and I understood later that he was just my brother and we were equals. My son was born 2 weeks ago, and he came to see him. He took a picture of my son and posted it on his Facebook. My fiance and I agreed to let him, and the caption read, "A proud grandpa of his grandson Few." I mean, he quoted the words. It's not like he was trying to mislead people. My dad was furious. He and my dad have had a rocky relationship since he never forgave him for cheating, and demanded that I correct him since that title belongs to him, and my brother was just trying to steal that experience from him. My brother didn't let him meet his children. So I said no. He earned the title by being there for us when no one was, and he wasn't even trying to mislead people. My brother's husband believes that it'd be better to delete the picture or edit the caption to avoid confrontation. But my brother refuses, and I'm on his side. He has more of an influence in my son's life than my father. My dad came to meet his grandchild but didn't say a word to me because I was siding with my brother on this matter. My sister says I'm stupid because my dad provided financially and paid for my sister's, and my brother's education, which proves that he cared about us. Paying for our education doesn't mean he cared for us. It was his responsibility to provide for us financially, but the only person who cared for us growing up was our brother, and I think he's not doing anything wrong. I called my ex-boyfriend an insecure little boy after he keeps making jabs at my job, which pays more than his job does, and then broke up with him. Tim and I met in an English literature class our junior year of college, and we've been together for 10 years since. While he ended up going into IT, I stayed in the liberal arts track and ended up doing nonprofit work after college when I realized I didn't actually want to be a school teacher. Just to say that we always assumed he'd out-earn me by a considerable margin. Though when he made more, I always insisted we split things evenly to avoid potential resentment down the road. I've had sort of a non-linear career path, but ended up switching to the corporate world. To make a long story short, my liberal arts degree and time doing nonprofit work gave me a lot of skills that enable me to really excel professionally in some more niche areas. I recently started a new job as a consultant, making way more than I'd ever anticipated. When I got the offer, I told Tim that the pay was amazing, but he didn't ask about the actual amount, and I didn't want to brag about it, especially since I was fairly sure it was above his current income. Well, we just put in an application for a new place, and in the process of having to submit our pay stubs, it's become obvious that I make roughly 30% more than he does now. I expected him to think that was cool, since he's a feminist and has always been super supportive of my career. But instead, he started to make incredibly harsh jabs about how I cheated the system to get where I am, that no English lit major makes more than a cybersecurity professional without cheating somehow. His major point is that I got my first job out of nepotism, which set me up to trample more qualified people who didn't have the same advantages. It's true that I got my first post-college job after being referred by a sorority sister, but it was for nonprofit work, making $22K a year, not exactly at somebody's daddy's firm. He also points out that at my first corporate job, I snagged a big promotion after volunteering to take on starting up the company's diversity/equity/inclusion program. And I'll admit that were I a white man, it's highly unlikely I would have been able to be the face of the eventually high-profile diversity program. Tim also notes that I was awarded a small college scholarship for being a promising female writer, when no such scholarship existed for males. I never try to appear superior to him or make him feel inferior to me, because I make more money than him. He just always goes out of his way to make me feel like I did something wrong, or cheated to get where I am somehow. But all that said, I still don't feel like I cheated the system, and it makes me angry to listen to him joke about it. Especially since I grew up blue collar and worked full-time while going to school full-time to afford my degree. I reached a breaking point yesterday when he made a crack about how the new/first woman on his team is an obvious diversity hire. I told him that his jokes about women cheating the system to get ahead aren't funny, or guy talk ribbing, as he says. They make him sound like an insecure little boy. He told me I was being a naive Karen, and we haven't really talked since yesterday. I don't think I went too far in calling him out and his bullshit, and I got to see the real him before it was too late.